any app.
Yeah, either way, you can install app and automatically it
Mhm.
will launch,
Okay,
or
okay.
you can use browser also. Both are same. The
Both are
the
same.
performance is almost same. Yeah.
Okay.
The app will take more resources. That's why I'm using browser.
Hmm.
Okay,
Okay.
so yesterday we learned some commands and VI editor, cat, mkdir, ls, less, and all. Today we'll learn about user group management and about the permissions. Okay, so the first command which we'll learn today is user add. Any user, John user. I've created a user,
An account.
but it's showing permission denied. Why? When we install the Ubuntu operating system for the first time, it will ask us to create a user. Okay, and that user is given a sudo's permission. Okay, in Linux, by default, on most of the operating system, uh, login using root user, which is a super user, is not allowed. Okay, so at the time of installation, whatever user we provided, that user will be provided the admin level privileges. Okay, but to run those admin level commands, we have to prefix sudo command. Okay, now if I do sudo user add, it will ask me for my password, and for my password, not the root password, and it will create a user. So earlier there was a permission denied, but now I can create a user. Okay, now I've created a user. Now just give a password to that user. We'll set a password to the user using passwd command. Okay, and it is giving an error, kind of a warning, that you cannot modify the information for John. We have to add sudo for that. And I'll set the password itself as John. Okay, so I've created a user John, and the password I have set as John. Now I'll go to putty. I'll log in. Okay, I'll give the username as John, and the password is also John. Okay, so when we log in for the first time, if you see, it is saying could not change to home directory / home / John, no such file or directory. Okay, so whenever we create a user, okay, it should create a home directory by default in /home. This we can change, but by default it will create a home directory in /home. But this it has not done in this case. Why? If we use some other flavor of Linux like Red Hat, okay, it will create a home directory. But in Ubuntu, we'll have to give an option called user add -m. Okay, then only it will create home directory for a particular user in /home. Okay, so now we cannot add -m option. So what we will do is we'll create a directory mkdir/home, and the user is John, and do it using sudo. I've created a user home directory for a user manually. Then I'll do sudo user mod -d/home John and the John user. So using user mod, we can change some parameters. Like I'm changing the home directory, not changing, I'm setting it. Okay, but it will say no changes. Why? Because if we go to /etc passwd, whenever we create a user, it's the details will be in the /etc passwd. And if you see, the John user was created using /home/John, but only an entry was made in this file. The directory was not created. We created the directory using mkdir. Now what I'll do is I'll just log out, and using putty I'll again log in. John. Okay, now it didn't give any warning, and if you do pwd, and properly in slash home slash John. Earlier it was in slash only. Okay. So we learned how to create a user using user add command. Okay, user add command, and we set the password using passwd. We also saw the command user mod where we can modify some parameters. Now we'll modify one more thing. uh, if we are on the screen, if you do echo dollar shell, okay, I'm using a sh shell, okay, but in sh shell, if you see, it is not so proper, okay, and there are some limitation of sh shell that it won't save the history and all properly. So what we will do is using user mod command, we'll also change the shell -s for shell slash bin bash for a user John, and I'll sudo to it. Okay, so if you see, the John user was created, but the shell was sh. Now we are changing the shell from sh to bash. Okay, now again check cat slash etc passwd. We can see the shell is bash now. Just log out and log in again. And the shell is now, if you do echo dollar shell, the shell is not now bash. So we saw user mod command, and there is a difference between a normal user and a root user. Okay, so for the normal user, it will see here a dollar, and for a root user we can become a root using sudo su hyphen. Okay, but only for the user which we created at the time of installation. If you try to do with the John, it will not work. Okay, so there is a difference between a normal user. Normal user will have this dollar prompt, and the root user will have hash prompt. And one more change is there. If we do id command, with id command we'll get the details of uid and gid. Okay, so when we created a user John, it was uid of 1001 and gid of 1001 was assigned to this user John. Okay, and for root user, it will be always uid will be 0 and gid will be 0. Now check, when we created the user John, okay, the user is having uid 1001 and gid 1001. And remember, whenever we create a user, a group with the same name will also be created. Okay, so if you go to this file cat slash etc group, okay, if you see here, we have a group as well here. Okay, so group is John, and the gid for that user is 1001. And if you cross check with the slash etc passwd file will have details of the user, its uid, its gid, its home directory, and its shell, the default shell. And if you go to group, we'll have details of John, that is group. So the root user will have uid 00, and any user which we create manually, they will be having an id above 1000. Okay, so when the first user which was created at the time of installation will always have 1000. Okay, later on whenever we create any other user, it will have 1001 uid, and any uid and gid below 1000 are system users. So there are some system user like syslog, it has uid and gid below 1000. Even root is a system user, it has uid and gid as 00. Now let's create one more user, user add -m. In this, we'll explicitly provide -m option so that the home directory is also created for that user in slash home, and I'll explicitly give the shell as bin bash. Again, we have a permission denied, so just add sudo to it. Okay, now if you check slash etc passwd, can see the user is created. So one of the method to log in is, let's first set the password. Password wd james. Password is also james. Okay. So one of the method would be log out and log in again, or create a new session. Okay. I'll log in as James. Password is also James. Okay. So we have a home directory and the shell is also proper. So the other method to log in, if we are already logged in, so I'm using one more terminal, one more application called MobaXterm. So the interface which you are seeing is MobaXterm. I prefer MobaXterm. You can also use Putty. So if you are already logged in via MobaXterm or a Putty, if you do sudo su, we become a root, and as a root I can log into any user like John. Okay, just do control D, again use James. Okay, control D. So one of the other method is login via root user, become a root and then login via that su hyphen command. So what we have learned is user add, user mod. Okay, pass wd. Now let's create a group. Okay, class. So the command would be group add class. Just add sudo to it. Now let's go to /etc group. Okay. If you see, a class group is created which is having a GID 1003, and if we check /etc pass wd, it will not have class. Okay, whenever we create a user, a group with the same name will be created, but vice versa is not possible. That is, whenever we create a group, user will not be created. Okay, remember that. So here in cat/etc group will have details of only group, and cat/etc pass wd will have details of only users, its uid, gid, shell and home directory. Now we created a class group called class. Okay, so what we will do is we'll add James and John in a class group. So how to do that? Just use the command user mod. Okay, and hyphen capital G, or in uppercase the group name, that is class, which user we want to add, John. Just add sudo. Similarly add James user in a group called class. So if I do cat/etc group, we can see John and James are in class group now. So we have learned one more command, that is group add. Okay, so any questions till now? Okay, I guess all good. Now next what we'll do is we'll learn about the permission, but before that let's log out from here. Control D. I'll delete the users which I have created. So the command is user del -r. -r mean it will also remove the home directory. If you don't add -r, it will not remove the home directory, and it also removes some email directories, the default mail directories. That's why there is an error, but it didn't create the directory, so it tried to remove it and it didn't find it. Similarly, I'll remove John user using userdel command. Okay, if you go to cd/home now, both the users directory are removed. John is not removed because we created it manually. It was not created using -m command. So this we have to remove manually. If we go to /etc/passwd, there won't be any user called John and James. But if you go to group, we still have a group. So to delete a group, the command would be group del, the group name, and add sudo to it. Cat group. Okay. So we saw now user del and group del. Now let's learn about the permissions, the interesting ones.